Great leaders are always learning. Tune in each week as we dig deep into the minds of America's top leaders and uncover their secrets for success and the pivotal moments that got them there. If you are looking for executive coaching that will drive you and your team to the winning goal line, this is the podcast for you.
Hey guys, this is Justin Simmons with another edition of the Leaders Playbook. On our show today, an amazing woman, an executive that exemplifies class at all levels. She's spent 38 years in healthcare and worked for 3 publicly traded companies, now leading HCA CareNow as the VP of Business Development and Integrations. Beth Tuma, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing at HCA and at CareNow and your role first and foremost. What do you do?
Absolutely. Well, we are a very large company. We have approximately 300,000 employees, and the company is about 56 years old. So it's been a long-standing, solid healthcare organization.
Yeah.
And we have really evolved over time in terms of, I would say, not just being a hospital company, but expanding into other areas of healthcare. You know, we do run 180 freestanding surgery centers. We have 285 urgent care clinics now. Mm-hmm. We have probably close to 50,000 employed physicians, and also obviously we have 200 hospitals. So we've been expanding very rapidly in the healthcare space.
Yeah, before we started the show, you were talking to me about your role at CareNow, and you guys are exploding, it sounds like.
Yes.
So tell me, what has been like the growth trajectory here over the last year?
So we acquired CareNow Urgent Care in Dallas. Let's see, it's been about 8 years ago, and there were 24 clinics. And we are now up to almost 300, as I said, in 19 markets. So we've just had a great opportunity to acquire various urgent care platforms. And we tend to go in markets, obviously, where we have other business, like hospitals and surgery centers. We've also been successful in opening de novo clinics. So we build our own clinics. We fill in our markets with our own construction, basically. And as most people probably know, with COVID, urgent care really is on the rise, you know, because really people feel a little more comfortable going to a clinic, especially for a low acuity problem.
Yeah.
And the turnaround time is very efficient. And so for us, that was kind of a missing piece that we had to fill in. And it's been a great experience. We offer comprehensive urgent care services, which is more than your average walk-in clinic.
Mm-hmm. Well, so like at My Labs Direct, we're doing a lot of at-home testing and trying to accommodate what seems to be also a growing virtual market as well. So how are you guys doing that as you're expanding the freestanding locations and investing in bricks and mortar, but also I assume like you're augmenting into the virtual space as well. How do you guys accomplish that?
Well, good question. You know, 3 years ago, we were setting up a telehealth platform nationwide. But with the onset of COVID, we realized we really needed to expedite that. And we literally stood it up in less than 80 days.
Wow.
And we are live with telehealth now. We have a centralized telehealth platform, and we are able to see patients anywhere in a state. We have, certified physicians that can see patients anywhere. So you don't need to be near a CareNow Urgent Care clinic. You can call in 500 miles away and still get that same service.
That's amazing.
And then what that physician will do is diagnose you and provide a medication prescription and or give you a referral for a specialist if it's something that you need. So I think that's really helped a lot of consumers, you know, especially when you live in a rural market. And, you know, care is not right there at your fingertips. And I think My Labs Direct has done some of that too as well, right?
We're working
it's a good strategy.
Yeah, just adapting to what the consumer needs. So.
That's right.
Well, Leaders Playbook is all about learning about you as a leader and as an executive. And so let's jump into that a little bit, learn a little bit about your background. So tell me, born, raised, where are you from, all that stuff?
Oh, yes. Well, I was born and raised in New York, of all places.
Wow.
Love New York. And then spent many years in Minnesota. My family is from Minnesota, the majority of my relatives. And then probably in, like when I started high school, moved to California. So that was quite a change. and lived in Santa Barbara, which is
cool.
a beautiful resort town.
Yeah, it is.
And then stayed in California for quite a long time, went to college and graduate school. And then I got transferred to Dallas in the early 90s. And that was with the previous company. And did a long stint here in Dallas, fell in love with Dallas, but then they transferred me back to California.
What part did you go back to?
Sacramento.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
A little different than Santa
A
Barbara.
little different, yes.
Yep.
It was nice though.
Yeah.
And then our company decided to sell off, basically divest, and it took about 2 years. But of course I thought, well, you know, I need to get another job. So I contacted one of my mentors, and he was with Cardinal Health, which is the largest healthcare company in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They do worldwide distribution, and I was lucky enough to become the senior vice president of sales for the medical imaging and PET scanning service line. So PET scanners were very new in the world of oncology, and many of the payers weren't covering that service. So it was really a big role I had was to try to convince and talk to the payers about why the efficacy is so important for PET scanning. Of course, today it's a required service for oncology.
Yeah.
And then I did that for about 7 years, and it was wonderful. But then I had another mentor who had gone to HCA as the president of the medical imaging department. And it was a brand new startup, and I think I realized I love startups. So I became their senior VP nationwide for medical imaging. We owned and operated 80 freestanding medical imaging centers across the United States. Did that, but then I thought, HCA is a hospital company, and I really need to get that experience under my belt. So I interviewed for a VP of sales role on the hospital side, and was able to get that role, and that was in Texas and Oklahoma, and it was a brand new position, so hired 42 sales executives.
Wow. And
did that for almost 10 years. And then we acquired CareNow, and I thought that was interesting too. So I was on the acquisition team, and I realized that would be something great to step into. So my role now is really to integrate all the parts of our company together.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you made that sound really easy, and I know it wasn't. So tell me some of the challenges. I mean, being
Sure.
You've been in healthcare for 38 years, so you've seen a lot of changes just in culture and otherwise, but an executive, a female executive coming up through, it's a largely male-dominated industry,
Yes, it
certainly
is.
at the executive level. So any challenges and kind of how you went through that process, or
Right.
what's your perspective on that?
I was lucky. I mean, I think I worked with some great men. A lot of my mentors were men. I think that the key thing is whether you're a man or a woman, you need to be relevant. You need to stay relevant to the company. So if the company is going in one direction, you need to say, what can I do to further that along?
Yeah.
In other words, don't fight change.
Yeah.
And I think our tendency sometimes is to, really fight change and get stuck behind all the barriers. And that's really, that's not a good solution, as we all know.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do is kind of evolve with healthcare, evolve with where our company was going, no matter where I was and what I was doing. And also, I think what's important is you see your external clients, of course, are your customers, but also your internal executives are your customers as well.
Yeah.
So service mentality.
That's you've done a wonderful job at that.
Thank you.
So I met you through our Chief Strategy Officer, Kristen Marsh, and she says nothing but wonderful things about you. And I think probably beyond what you realize, you've had such a major impact on her, and I assume so many other female executives out there. So applaud you on that, because
thank you.
It's a big role, and you've done some amazing things. So on that note, so talking about HCA, some of the things there, environment-wise, that's a big company. Is that, obviously you fit well in that environment?
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that. Is that
Sure.
what's it been like working for a
Sure.
large corporation? That's a huge company, and
It
to be able to
is.
stand out against a mass of talent
Right.
on
Yes.
your way up.
Yes, for sure. My comfort zone is with big companies, and I think what I like is all the depth of the resources. There are so many resources and so many experts subject matter experts that are, available. I mean, I don't ever pretend to know everything or do it on my own.
Right.
You need to gauge partners that can work with you and help you in areas that you maybe are unclear to you. But yeah, I really enjoy the large company facet too, because I think it's interesting. I think we dabble in so many different parts of healthcare that it's never dull, it's never boring. It's always interesting. I've had 3 roles in 17 years with HCA, and I've learned so much.
Do you see are there any challenges for you to be innovative? And I hear that routinely from people in large corporations, like kind of get stymied by the bureaucratic structure, or do you find it actually, if you can adapt and get involved in the way things work, it serves to your benefit?
Yeah, I think, the one thing I've learned is when you come out with a new idea, new concept, and you try to engage stakeholders, basically, it's not always well received, maybe at the first pass, but don't give up. Just wait, give it a little time. What I like to do is get one-on-one meetings with different folks that I feel like should be on board with the strategy, should want to understand it. And so over time, I basically build my team. And then by the time I've got support, we're able to move forward. So one thing was the direct employer strategy. I think that's still new, but you and I were talking about what a great opportunity that is.
Yeah.
And, first when I talked about it, about 4 or 5 years ago, people were like, well, what is that?
Yeah.
We can't do that, and I understood why, because it was a foreign concept. But now, fast forward, everyone's on board with it. We're moving forward very quickly, as are you in this space, because I think it's the future of healthcare in a lot of ways. And I think self-insured employers primarily are looking for solutions for their employees.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a expanding marketplace.
It really is.
So you've been a part of obviously a lot of team building.
Yes.
And obviously had a lot of success in that. So tell me a little bit about your philosophy in leadership,
Sure.
True to the title of our show. And I wanted to learn a little bit about
Sure,
how you approach
absolutely.
leading and building teams, and what's your philosophy?
I would say always be recruiting.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It's, even if you don't have any positions open on your team, it's still important to interview people.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing that can happen to you is, let's say you have 4 or 5 people that leave at once, and it happens sometimes, and then you're left with nobody to hire. And I've always done that. So many times I had no openings, but I would meet with people for coffee, keep up with them, check in with them. And there's a few people on my sales team that I had known for 10 years. And then when I got an opening, I said, hey, by the way, I've got an opening.
Yeah.
And I already knew what their work ethic was. I knew their success track record. It wasn't like I was taking a risk.
Right.
And so I was bringing these people on, and they were superstars.
That makes sense. So you're like investing in that person over time on the long play to get the right people on that team with you, so that you can have greater success.
Right. And you hear about this, just one more thing, you hear about this a lot, like, hire people that have strengths that you don't have.
Yeah.
And use them as mentors on the team. Let them be a star. Let them be a mentor to the rest of the team. For example, I had people that were very good at data analysis, really strong in interpreting data, which is so important in healthcare. And I had other people that were very good at public speaking and presenting to clients. So they would run workshops for the rest of the team to say, hey, this is how I get through a presentation. These are kind of my tips, right? Yeah. And then, certainly we had people that were very good at constructing those presentations. Maybe have a little graphics talent there. And so everybody got to shine. Everybody brings something to the table, but it's your job as the leader to figure out what that is.
So when you're building the team, I think I like this idea of introducing competition and, keeping things fresh, but balancing that with how do you maintain loyalty on that team if they think, well, Beth might, nix me here for the next best talent. How do you balance that and keep those people motivated and loyal to the cause that you're promoting?
I think giving them new, fresh things to work on.
Mhm.
You never want your team to become stale or bored. When you've got, opportunities, engage them. And I used to even take a lot of my team members to high-level meetings with my division presidents. I took people to the corporate office in Nashville so they could learn. And that was very, very interesting to them. I know Kristen and I, we went to Nashville and we spent a few days there. And I tried to introduce her to really key leaders in the company. And she got exposed to HCA leaders. So I think that was helpful. And, but I also think, you need to, when you're hiring, they say it, but it's true, go with your gut. If you feel like something is just not right about a candidate, it could be anything, right? Don't hire them.
Yeah.
Don't hire them because you want everyone to be successful. You want it to work out for them.
What's your feeling on management roles underneath you there?
Right.
How much do you have to motivate those people, or do you feel it's like, look, someone should be self-started, they should drive their own deal? What's your thinking there?
Yeah, I think you need to channel that. I mean, at first, when they start with the company, you really have to teach them about the company and kind of our philosophy and how we treat employees and where we're going, what's our 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan. And I share all of that, as much as I can. But if I love self-starters. I mean, I look for them. I'm going to channel that energy in the right direction. I'm not going to micromanage them. That's the worst thing you can do as a leader.
Right.
No one wants to have someone overlooking them at all times. I think that's how you really demotivate people. So you give them an opportunity, let them fly, and let them spread their wings. And chances are they're going to be successful. I mean, support them, but don't squash their ideas either. And I think everyone needs to feel like they're contributing. That's how you do that.
So post-COVID, a lot of things have changed, obviously, about people's work life.
Yes.
and otherwise. How do you guys balance that at HCA, a more structured company?
Yes.
People working from home, and how do you manage that?
MyLabsDirect.com, anytime, anywhere. MyLabsDirect.com, anytime, anywhere.
The company does talk about work-life balance. I think it's very important. I think the company is very generous with time off. We have a lot of paternal leave of absence. I mean, we've got a lot of benefits that allow you to take, I think, significant vacation time, even when you're a fairly new employee. Because I think in healthcare, it is a very intense job in healthcare. And I think the company realizes that we need people to have, relaxation, enjoy their family time. But let's be honest. I mean, any job that where you're going to be successful, you have to put the time into.
Right.
So I think just on a personal level, making sure you have some hobbies, whether that's working out or helping with a charity or, there's so many things, right, that people have very interesting hobbies. And I think it's important to really make time for those things. I've really tried to do that, and I think it makes you more well-rounded, and you work better actually when you've had some time to, do something a little different.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on that note, so to get to know a little bit more about you, Beth, tell us about the day in the life of Beth Tuma.
Sure.
So I like to understand about how much sleep do you need? What do you eat routinely? Do you work out? What are your hobbies? What are your interests?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I do need a lot of sleep. So I would say, I try to go to bed at a decent hour. I also travel quite a bit. So early flights, so I try to get in 7 hours at least of sleep per night. I do love to work out. So I do a little better of working out at 7 o'clock at night versus 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
It's just me. My body clock I have more energy as the day goes on, I think. And so I like to swim. I like to run. I've started Pilates. I love that. I'm starting pickleball.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's, I like different types of working out. And I think that's really important to get that mental relief at the end of a day. And I would also say, every night I'm checking my phone just for what's my schedule the next day, make sure I'm prepared, and make sure I know exactly who's going to be in every meeting for the next day, what the topic is, what can I bring to the table, what resources do I need to share. So I'm already pretty much going into my week knowing exactly who's going to be there and what we're going to discuss. So I feel prepared pretty much always.
So you run like a brief the night before, get all
I
your stuff
do.
checked out
I
before
do.
you shut down for the night?
The other thing I do, and it's just helped me immensely, honestly, Justin, is at the end of each day, I review my schedule and I look to see who do I need to follow up with. So let's say I had 8 meetings, and it could be tomorrow I have 10. So, but then I check to say, oh, that might involve Justin. I'm going to shoot him an email or a text, just tell him, hey, we talked about this. Let me brief you. Hey, Kristen, you'd be so good to join this committee. I just try to make sure I'm keeping everyone in the loop. And I think that's really important, because if you go through all these meetings and you don't communicate with the right people, it's gonna stagnate.
Yeah.
So you got to keep the ball rolling with the right people and bring in those leaders that can keep those projects rolling forward.
Interesting. So tell me about interests. Like, what do you read? Do you read a lot? Are you a Netflix person? What?
Yeah, I like factual TV. So I really like, sounds silly, but National Geographic, I love. I like documentaries. I read biographies of people. I'm not as much into the future of the space endeavors or whatever. I'm more of a left brain.
Yeah.
So I like to know, is that actually possible? Is that really do I think that could happen? It just piques my interest more. So I do like Netflix too, once in a while, but I gravitate toward factual movies and TVs, I would say.
So who's who's inspired you in your, career path and just in general?
Yes.
Do you have any major inspirations?
I do. I have several, actually. I've had, I would say in 38 years, I've had 4 male senior executives that, I've learned a lot from. And then I've had probably 3 female executives. So I've had a real combination, which I'm proud of, because it's not like I'm looking for a man or a female, male or female to guide me. I've had an infusion of both. And I think you just try to pick up the best qualities in your leaders, and they become mentors. And I would say, in my career, I've had 98% wonderful leaders that have become my mentors.
Yeah, lucky.
And been really helpful to me. But no, I think it's important to take the strengths of those mentors and really try to learn from that and incorporate them. And, and then you can take those skills and pass them on. I think that's really important.
So you have one day to spend with anybody, history or in the past or the future.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I put you on the spot, but
Oh, that's all right.
who do you think that would be? Anybody,
Oh,
dead or
wow.
alive?
I would say I tend to like spiritual leaders. So anyone that has sort of changed the history of religious thinking, I would be fascinated to spend time with. Even the Pope.
Yeah, there you go.
I wouldn't mind, because they have a different focus and a different perspective other than business.
Yeah.
I've been entrenched in business, but I like to learn about like what drives people. Talk about following, like a religion or something like that. That takes real talent to engage people in a religious following. And I think that's a completely different skill set, probably in some ways, than creating a business and creating, a following, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think any religious leader I would be fascinated to spend time with.
Yeah, it is a different perspective
It
and a
is.
different, being present and,
Yes.
and seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, I
is-
took a world religion class one time. I think it was in graduate school, actually. And I learned so much. I had no idea. It's just interesting. Like there's like 1,000 types of religion in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all different.
You might have
So
missed your calling, Beth.
I might, my next life.
Yeah, there you go. So again, like I said at the outset of the show, you've done some amazing things, and being a female executive, again, in a largely male-dominated industry,
Right.
Maybe give our viewers, female viewers, some tips
Sure.
about how to lead as a female
Sure.
female executive.
Yeah, I would say don't let that get in your way. You know, I never think of it as, oh, Justin's a male and Kristen's a female. That does not cross my mind. I'm always thinking about what is this person's strengths, you know, where are they going? What do they need in terms of resources? I don't let that bog me down. In fact, it bothers me to hear men say, oh, she's a woman, or women say, oh, he's a man. I mean, you know, who cares, right? I mean, as long as you respect everybody, they respect you. Don't let that bog you down, because chances are it's not a male-female thing. Sorry, my allergies. It's more of a, you know, you're trying to divide yourselves based on someone's, the way they were created. That's so silly, because you're going to learn from men, you're going to learn from females. And I think if you come to the table without any of those barriers, you'll be accepted and you'll be respected.
I agree. I think a lot of times people come in with this mindset of, I think, lacking accountability.
Right.
And we can find areas and ways that we can make excuses for why we're not succeeding, but ultimately just overlooking that.
Right. Because I have not found that female executives, I know plenty of them, have been discriminated against. That has not been my experience in 3 publicly traded companies. I've never seen that. I've never once really seen that to the depth that I hear described.
Yeah.
You know? I just don't think it exists.
Yeah.
At that level. Maybe in small ways, but don't let that bog you down. You know, it's all about what can you bring to the table, what can you deliver, and what do you need to be successful.
That's right. I think that's all your perspective.
That's right.
You can look at glass half full, glass half empty every day. So that's awesome. Beth, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Again, super classy, very impressive. You've had a major impact on people even in my organization that have worked closely with you, and I thank you so much.
Sure.
I wish you nothing but
Justin.
luck. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us on this edition of the Leaders Playbook. We'll be back next week, so tune in and we'll bring another exciting guest on.